Welcome to the Transfer Roundup. We have taken some of the biggest news in the world of football today, and we're going to give our thoughts and initial reactions to the new news. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. Bayern Munich are reportedly interested in signing Kyle Walker from Manchester City, and I'm going to pose the question to you. What do you think about this move for Bayern Munich?
I think it's a great move. I think if any team is in the market for a fullback, I think Kyle Walker, you can't go wrong with him. He's a veteran. He's won basically virtually everything coming right off a treble. And I think he'd be a good veteran leader to have in your defense. Maybe not as a starter. I think for Bayern Munich is kind of showing of the hand that they don't think Cancelo will be coming back. So they kind of want to have that depth. And, I'm all for Man City losing more depth.
Yeah. Well, look, I think for Bayern Munich's perspective, this would be a fantastic signing. I think if you are in the market for a right back, you should be hitting up Manchester City to get Kyle Walker. I think it would be a phenomenal move for Bayern Munich. I think it's a bit interesting from the Man City perspective, though, because what made that team so good? Obviously, they have world-class players in pretty much every position, but the depth was so important for them this season, and it just seems as if they are going to lose a lot of that depth. So they're either going to have to make a lot of signings to replace it, or the team is just not going to be as strong next season. So Kyle Walker is going to be a big loss. I mean, let's not sit up here and act like just because he wasn't a starter week in, week out for Man City this season, that he's all of a sudden lost his class. When he played against Real Madrid in the Champions League semifinal, he was phenomenal. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to stop Vinicius Jr., and he did just about as good as you could do against a player of that caliber. So he still has it. He's not a guy that you can start every single week. I mean, he is getting a bit old, but for a squad player, fantastic signing. I think more clubs should be after him. It'd be a good move for Bayern or any club in general. But next on the agenda, huge news coming out of Paris today. Their managerial search is still on. Julian Nagelsmann is not going to be the next PSG manager. They have called off negotiations for unknown reasons. We don't really know why. It seems as if Nagelsmann he has demands that no club is willing to meet at the moment, whether it's Tottenham, Chelsea, and now PSG. So what do you think about this for PSG?
I really don't understand what's going on. I mean, look, I'm a bit confused on both sides because PSG need an actual manager. I think Nagelsmann was a perfect fit. He's a young manager trying to grow into, to win trophies the same way PSG are trying to win the Champions League. I mean, it's something they're trying to do, and maybe they could have learned together. But I don't know what Nagelsmann's demands are. I mean, are they? I really would like to know because right now every club is just not working out, and right now he's running out of clubs. I don't really know. Is he going to go to Italy? Is he going to go to Spain? I really don't think that he would do that. But for PSG, I mean, who else really is there? Is there? I mean, realistically, I think whatever Nagelsmann asked for, they should have just complied because
Mm-hmm.
I mean they have no bargaining chips here. I mean they're in need for a manager, and just like Nagelsmann, he's in need for a club, but he's obviously has shown that he's not new to rejecting clubs if they
Yeah,
don't meet his standards.
yeah. I think what we've learned so far is that Nagelsmann seems to not be an easy guy to work with. I mean, we all know that there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with Bayern Munich that ultimately led to his sacking. We've heard that his demands to join Chelsea or join Tottenham and now join PSG have just been a bit wild. We don't know the exact details of everything, but that's just what we've heard. So it just seems to me that Nagelsmann seems to think maybe he's a bit better than he actually is. I think it seems to me that he's just going to take the season off. Obviously, he's still going to have clubs next season that are going to want him, and there's going to be clubs that need managers next season. It seems to me like he is not going to be a manager next season. And, I think it's a bit interesting because from a PSG perspective, they're already making signings. And to me, what that shows is that their board is just making signings, but they don't have a manager. And for me, and this goes for any club, you need to be in communication with your manager about who you're signing. And for me, this just shows the disaster that is PSG's board and also their president, that they just don't really know what they're doing. They're going to bring a manager in, and they've already signed Manuel Ugarte, and they've also signed, I forget his name, but they just announced another signing as well. So to me, why are you making signings if you don't have a manager? You need to have your manager first, be in communication with your manager, and then make your signings. And now PSG they're a bit falling behind because the transfer window is well and truly kicked off. They are already making signings, but you don't have a manager. You don't know what system you're going to play. So how can you possibly know what players to bring in if you don't know what system you're going to play, who's going to be your manager. You know what I mean? I think realistically, the only top manager left that PSG could get is Luis Enrique. I think ultimately that it seems like it has to be it, right? I mean, unless they're just going to go for a totally unproven guy, which I don't think PSG are going to do. To me, and we've said this before in a previous video, PSG is just an absolute disaster. It's a shit show. And this just, to me, shows that once again that PSG don't really know what they're doing, not only as a football club, but on the transfer side of things. And to me, it's no surprise that Nagelsmann doesn't want to go to PSG, and that's ultimately why the negotiations kind of fell through, because PSG are just a disaster of a club. They don't know what they're doing. They're shit ran. They don't really know how to run a football club, and it just speaks volumes to where that club is headed, especially when they ultimately lose Kylian Mbappe, which is only a matter of time at this point.
Yeah, and the player you were trying to think of was Milinkovic-Savic from Lazio. That's who they announced that they signed. That was the guy.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I agree with what you said. I mean, it's hard to, when you have a manager and they like to have a say in who you sign, who you bring in, because everybody has their own different way of how they play, how they want to play. And for PSG to just kind of that's kind of what I believe got them into this situation in the first place. They just signed whoever was the biggest name and it was somewhat available, even though it's hard to say who wouldn't want Mbappe, Messi, Neymar. Maybe not every manager would want all three. Maybe try and spread because they're top heavy as fuck.
Yeah.
Because
and also, those players, they don't necessarily look, many managers nowadays, they press, you know what I mean? And Messi's not going to press. So if you're going to get a pressing manager, you don't really want Messi or Neymar. You know what I mean? You don't want both of them. Maybe one of them, but you don't really want both of them. And I think that's ultimately why Pochettino failed at PSG, because this wasn't meant to be. This wasn't really going to work. You needed to have a specific manager, and this goes for any football club. It's not just PSG. You should not make any signings unless you are in communication with your manager. What's the point? You know what I mean? Now, whoever does get the PSG job is going to be forced to use these players that he might have never even wanted. The new manager might not like Ugarte, might not want, Skriniar or Milinkovic-Savic. They just might not want these players, but they're going to have to use them because that's just the hand they're dealt. You know what I mean? And look, I'm not going to say that they're bad players or anything like that, but they might just not fit the system. So I think that PSG, look, I mean, we all know they're not going to win the Champions League next season. I mean, they're a cursed club. It's never going to happen. I've said it time and time again. I'll continue to say it. But if you do want to start making the strides in the right direction, you have to learn that you need to make signings in conjunction with your manager. And I don't know when they're going to learn it. I don't know. I mean, we're just two guys making football videos and we know it. I don't know how an actual football club can't figure it out. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
But the final crazy news of the day, obviously, from my club, Chelsea. There's multiple cases of news coming out about Chelsea today, but the one we've chosen, Lautaro Martinez from Inter Milan and, of course, from Argentina, is open to a Chelsea move. Pochettino has recruited him to the club. He's reportedly wants Lautaro Martinez. And, how do you feel about this? Do you think Lautaro Martinez would be a good signing for Chelsea?
Well, I think before I answer this, I think you should answer this first, since it does have to do with your club. I know you kind of don't like introducing the topic and to answering, but since it's directly linked with your club, you should go first.
Well, look, what I'll say is this. I am happy to get anybody that Pochettino wants. Like I just said 2 minutes ago, you need to make signings in conjunction with your manager. So if Pochettino has told Todd Boehly, I want Lautaro Martinez to be number 9, this is the guy that I want to fit my system, he's going to be perfect, then you go and sign him. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If Pochettino says, I want Lautaro Martinez, he's the guy, then you go and get Lautaro Martinez. I'm not going to sit up here and act like, he's perfect, because obviously he's not. But I think a lot of people's memory of Lautaro Martinez is a bit foggy. It's a bit, off because of the fact they remember what just happened in the Champions League final, that supposedly big chance. To be honest, I think that Champions League final chance is a bit overblown, because when you think about it, it's a really tight angle. He was never going to score past Ederson at that angle. Romelu Lukaku, who was making the darting run in, was marked. He just was never going to score from that angle. Like, he was marked. I think the Man City defender would have gotten the ball. There was only one guy open, and that was Brozovic, who was making a deep run. He would have received the ball on the edge of the box. He would have had to take it first time, and it would have had to have been a spectacular goal to beat Ederson, who would have been running back to his goal, probably would have saved it. So realistically, people are not rating Lautaro Martinez because they're saying he's not clinical, he's this and that, but they're forgetting he has been prolific for Inter Milan in Serie A. He's literally the captain of Inter Milan. He's a leader, and he has been prolific in Serie A. Obviously, once again, people think, just because he had a bad World Cup, he's a bad player, but that's just not true. Just because you had bad form at the wrong time in the World Cup doesn't mean you're a bad player. I think Lautaro Martinez could be good for Chelsea, but naturally, and this would go for anybody, it doesn't matter who we sign to be our number 9. I'm always going to be a bit nervous just because of the fact whoever we sign to play number 9 for Chelsea Football Club, it seems as if we're cursed. It doesn't matter who we sign, Lukaku, Morata, doesn't matter. We cannot really, like, every number 9 we sign seems to be a flop. So obviously I'm going to be nervous about whoever we sign. But if Pochettino says, I want Lautaro Martinez, then you go and get Lautaro Martinez, and I'm going to back him 100%. I think he can be good for the club. I like what I see out of him. I think he can offer multiple things. I mean, it's not just like he's a poacher. I think he is, his dribbling is nice. He can drop deep and link up the play as well. I think he offers a lot outside of just goals. So I think it'd be a good move. Obviously, the price tag is the big question mark here. Inter Milan are not going to want to sell him. They've already proven that they are a stingy club. We've already learned that through their Onana deal, that they said they want 80 million for him. That's just too much. They don't want to pay too much for Lukaku, even though they have a great relationship. It's just working with Inter Milan on a transfer deal is just not good. It's just a tough club to work with. So obviously, it depends on the price tag, but I think if Pochettino wants him, then we go get him.
Look, I like it, but I don't love it, because I think Chelsea have to be very, very smart with the next move they make of the player that's going to lead their front line. I always thought, and I'm sure you're going to agree, Harry Kane is, to me, the only possible option. And God knows what's going to happen with Harry Kane, if he's going to go from a London club to another London club. But Lautaro Martinez just has too much shades of a Morata to me, of a guy who he's had good runs, but he has those demons in his head to where when he gets bad form, my God, it's really bad form.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if he can survive that type of pressure that London and those Chelsea fans would put on him through those bad times, because he's going to have them. And unless you do something spectacular, I mean, we saw when Morata first came, how he's prolific. He was getting doubles. He was scoring consistently until that bad form hit, and then the fandom turned on him. Mm-hmm. And then he was just never the same. And that's something I think could happen to Lautaro Martinez. Because, look, he's a great player. I think he's very young, and it was a bit weird to go from just playing in the Champions League final to wanting to go to a club that's not in Europe at all. That's a bit weird, but I can kind of get that he's a young player and he can see what they're building here. He's a smart guy. He can kind of understand, okay, they're not always not going to be in Europe, but that's a big, big ask, just because there is a bit of a curse at Chelsea at the number 9 position that they just can't seem to get it right. I mean, the only really proper 9s they've had was Didier Drogba and Diego Costa.
Yeah.
Other than that,
I miss Diego Costa. Man.
It's almost been impossible. And yeah, Diego Costa was that perfect striker that Chelsea needed. A guy that he didn't care what anybody thought of him. He was just a real nasty physical player, and he was about as game as it gets. I mean,
he was the epitome of what Chelsea Football Club is.
Yeah, I think he was a bit of a he had like a bit of Cantona on him, like a bit of that that nasty vile in him, but he was perfect. He fit it, and I don't see that in Lautaro Martinez. Not even say that Lautaro's not great. It's just that I don't know if this is the move for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, I agree. I definitely agree with that. I think it just comes down to, you do what Pochettino wants, and that goes for any manager, for any club. You should be doing what the manager wants. If he really thinks that that's the guy, then you go get him. And look, you don't want to overpay, but if he's really convinced,
they're going to want upwards of almost close to 100 million.
For sure. I doubt it's anything less than 80 million. I highly doubt it. Look, for what he's done for Inter Milan, you can understand it. I mean, he's not necessarily an old player. I think he's 24, 25. I mean, so he's entering what should be his prime. And ultimately, I mean, he did lead them to a Scudetto. He's done a lot for the club. He kind of helped them get to a Champions League final, which realistically nobody really expected.
Yeah, no one
from Inter Milan. So, and look, let's just be honest. Like we said, they were close to winning that final. Let's not beat around the bush here. They were close. Yeah. I mean, they had their chances. Realistically, they had the chances to potentially take that aim in extra time. So, it's a bit of a weird dynamic, but I just think you do what Pochettino wants, and you don't think twice about it. And look, obviously, do I feel a bit of nerves? Do I get a little bit of butterflies in my stomach? Just thinking about another number 9 coming to Chelsea for a big price tag. Of course I do, because look, it just seems as if every single time that they fail, but you just have to go again. There's no way every single one can fail. Eventually, you have to get one right. Eventually, that's how I feel. So, it's one of those things. Who really knows at this point? I mean, Chelsea's linked to everybody. I mean, they're still linked to Kolo Muani. They're still linked to Lautaro Martinez. They just signed, not 100% confirmed, but 21-year-old Nicholas Jackson from Villarreal to be probably the backup to potentially Lautaro Martinez or whoever. So, there's just so much going on at Chelsea right now. This might never really come to fruition, but I think whoever we do end up signing, it has to be Pochettino's guy. That's my ultimate point here.
Yeah, because for what is available out there right now, I think Lautaro is probably the best option. I mean, if he's willing to go, because the hardest selling point is that you're not going to have European football, that first season. And you're kind of selling them on the idea that we will be there eventually.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I would feel this type of way even if it was Victor Osimhen, because as great as Victor Osimhen has been this season, I would be iffy if he went to Chelsea as their new.
I would be nervous. Yeah, look, it has nothing to do with Lautaro Martinez. I would be nervous even if we sign Osimhen. Any striker, it doesn't matter.
The only one is Harry Kane.
Yeah, I would be nervous.
That's only one guy. I mean, that's it.
Yeah,
and God knows what's going to happen with that Harry Kane situation now. With
it seems to me as if he's not going to leave.
It seems like
it seems what's going to happen. So, feel bad for Harry Kane, but I wish he would come to Chelsea because that's the only guy that I can definitively 100% say he wouldn't flop.
Yeah, he would.
Any other guy, you're taking a risk. I mean, there's no question about it. You're taking a risk. I mean, how many Serie A? Look, we've seen a lot of Serie A players come to the Premier League and excel. We've also seen a lot of Serie A players come to the Premier League and flop. So you never really know what you're getting. It's a mixed bag. It's truly 50-50. You don't really know what you're going to get, but like I said, you do what Pochettino wants, and you just hope it works. That's my ultimate goal here. But look, we just wanted to do this on the channel. We're probably going to have more of these types of videos coming out because look, you can't do individual videos about all of these, so you just lump them into one and you post it. So that's ultimately what we're doing here. The transfer window is heating up. It's coming thick and fast now with news almost every single day. So you can expect more of these types of videos. So yeah, hopefully y'all enjoyed it. I think without further ado, we can wrap it up.
Get out of here.
So I'm Zach.
I'm G.
And we'll see you next time for another video on the channel. Peace.